On today's news, is the Premier League finally back? Project Restart finally starts. Callum Hudson-Odoi, the latest player to breach lockdown rules, and Lacazette is in trouble for having a balloon party. And finally, can you bring in a sex doll into a stadium? You finally can if you're in South Korea. All right, we finally have some Premier League news that we've all been waiting for, Alex. Premier League clubs have agreed to stage one of the return to training protocols, allowing teams to start training in small groups from Tuesday onwards, which the clubs voted unanimously for. So I think you only need 14 out of 20 clubs to agree, but players must observe social distancing rules and contact training is not permitted just yet. But it has
That's Diego Costa out then, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank God he's not in our league anyway. But it's been agreed in consultation with players, managers, club doctors, independent experts, and the government. So that must have been one exhausting conversation. But finally, we're here. What is your first take on this news?
I want to know who the players were. I want to know which players they asked, because there's been a lot of players who have vocally been against the Premier League restarting. You got Deeney, Willian has said something about it. Danny Rose come out and said that it shouldn't really be started.
Aguero as well?
Yes, Aguero come out the other day. So I do wonder what players they got in to do that. And
It's weird. Does Aguero know how to speak English? Did he just did a translation for that?
He actually said something completely different, but I was like, no, we're just gonna touch this.
We're gonna use you as a pawn for our own gain.
You know what? A Premier League official, I don't even know if they released his name, but it's one of them like kind of statements that just comes out and basically said if players refuse to play, then they shouldn't be paid.
Yeah, I think they finally got them scared. I mean, it's the same thing with you and your work. So what if your work just said, okay, you won't get paid? You'd be diving straight into that office, no matter what.
You know what's horrible about that is I don't want to agree to that, but yeah, you're right. But yeah, I do wonder. I think what they're trying to do, they're trying to put out these positive messages that it's all on the way, but I think there's so many barriers actually still there, because they might have had a few players. I'd imagine the captains, that would have made the most sense, that maybe in principle agreed a structure to training. But I think people need to know that this is only the very first step. There's still a lot more barriers they need to overcome.
Yeah, well, the contact training is one. They can't rub against each other, which I'm sure they want to if they celebrate a goal in training.
Did you see where they said if they tackle that they have to look away?
Breathe away. Can you imagine that?
Or just imagine telling someone like Roy Keane or Patrick Vieira, oh, by the way, when you're going for tackle, look away. No, they want eye contact. They want it full. They want full pelt when they're going in.
To be fair, whenever I get tackled, I kind of wince away like that. So like I'd be perfect for this type of training environment.
Natural coronavirus tackler.
yeah. Way ahead of the time I was. But they initially identified 12th of June for matches to possibly start, but now that expectation is that it will be delayed a bit further than that. So I think maybe a couple days to a week that we might get football back behind 12th of June.
Yeah, I think Sterling was actually, I think it might have been a podcast or something like that. He was speaking to that Megan Rapone, the captain for the USA women's team. And he was saying that they need about 5 weeks to train, yes. Which I think is also a fair thing. If you go into to play full pelt Premier League games and you're not fully fit for it, you've got more chance of getting injured.
Yeah. And they sort of giving what it is right now is about 3.5 weeks of training, which is tough, because even if you train at home and you run and you do some intensity training, you don't have the intensity for change of directions and the decision making you have to make in milliseconds. So I don't know what their plans are, but I've read that they are obviously have to do lots of tests with coronavirus, and
I'm going to interrupt you there, and I'll tell you why. Because one of the things that I think Troy Deeney brought up was those tests should be used elsewhere. There's people on the front line, the NHS, many other people, postal workers, train drivers, whoever, who should be getting these tests. Mainly the NHS, to be fair. But, should footballers, what right do they have? I don't think they have any to get that first. Right, yes, it's a sport at the end of the day, and I love football. I love it. But they're not important right now as our doctors and nurses.
Yeah, I know, but the history of the world, the rich always win. The rich always get what they want. So,
Well, you got Boris. We need people going back to football. So this is it.
he does that, doesn't he?
And there's a slam on a desk. Yes. Good.
Yeah. If
It's
he
not
was,
good for him. Do you remember his tackle we did in that kind of charity game?
yeah, we need some of that. That was full contact.
Yeah, that weren't that wasn't looking away contactless, was it, Mr. Johnson?
Okay, on to the next news. What is the next piece of news that we got?
Yes. So Callum Hudson-Odoi decided that it wasn't bad enough just to break lockdown. He's also been arrested and since been released on suspicion of rape.
Wow.
Yeah, he was arrested in the early hours of Sunday morning. So I want to be careful with this because the thing is, whenever stories like this come out early,
you need the facts only.
You do need the facts. You don't want to end up in another who's a former Ched Evans situation.
Yeah.
And obviously, or Adam Johnson situation. You want to wait till you actually know the full story, so you know who who the bad person is, and then they should obviously face the full kind of consequences. But he has been arrested and since been released from custody. He's been bailed and he's due to return, I think, mid-June as the police continue their inquiries.
My take on this, right? Callum, you idiot. You couldn't wait. It's basically at the end of lockdown. You survived this long and just to trip up in the final hurdle. Because if the matches go ahead in a couple of weeks, Chelsea need you. Chelsea need you, and you've got a lot to prove. You're like a wonder kid. You got bags of talent, but you've been very inconsistent. So
don't forget that 120k contract.
Exactly. There's still a lot of expectations for this youngster, and he could have hit the ground running, and he could have propelled Chelsea even further up the table. But now look, he's got his career for this season and next season might be over if these allegations are true, which I hope aren't true. But
for all parties concerned, I think.
Yeah.
Should I move on to the next piece of news?
Yes.
So I'd say this is a lot lighter considered the last bit, but Alex Lacazette is facing disciplinary action from Arsenal after footage emerged of the striker seemingly inhaling from a balloon again. So this comes 18 months after he got caught doing it before.
Yeah, and if you didn't know, listeners, nitrous oxide gas is used for also painkillers for dental patients, but it can lead to oxygen deprivation and has been linked to 17 deaths before. So obviously this is a terrible, terrible look for Lacazette. And I don't know, I feel like the Arsenal board, they need to, find some money down the back of their sofa. So they're probably looking at this with little pound signs in their eyes, like, yes, let us find Lacazette for 4 weeks. That's like what I think he's on 180 a week. So they could go as hard as they could, considering this is a second-time offense.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think he's, again, just, silly decision-making. And, Hudson-Odoi, he's 21, 22? He's a young kid. He's learning. Lacazette doesn't have that.
I know.
He's older.
It's worse.
So I think it's really stupid on his behalf. And I think, again, they don't think about the example. And it's like, and it's not even that, but it's just if you have a friend there and they're recording you and it ends up like kind of.
What I want to know is who is the snitch? Because he obviously sent it to his friends, but one of them snitched. They probably got paid like, I don't know, $1,000 to send it over to. I don't even know who it was. Maybe Daily Mirror. I can't remember who. But I want to know who the snitch is. You got to weed him out, Lacazette. I mean, after you take the fine.
It's Takeshi 6ix9ine again.
He's got all these webs into different countries. Eve can get you at
You
any
get a
time.
snitch on everyone. Yeah, it's just stupidity.
And on to our final piece of news. Do we have a final piece of news?
Oh, this is a funny bit of news to end it well, especially considering the last two. Is to end it on a bit of a lighter note to end our Premier League news. We're going all the way to South Korea.
For my brothers out there.
Okay, you should have probably saved that until you learn why South Korea are in the news. FC Seoul, who are by far the biggest football club in South Korea, have come out and apologised after accidentally using sex dolls to replace fans in empty grounds.
I mean, they are very creative at the same time. You got
You're
to
on
give
their
them
side.
credit.
What a surprise.
They're way light years ahead of the coronavirus game. Okay, they've done it. They got criticized, but people will be gagging for it once they see an empty stadium on Sky Sports and BT Sport. They'll be like, "We need some sex dolls in there," and they're gonna reference FC Seoul in the future.
I think Man City, what might happen is when fans are allowed back into stadiums, Man City might have to come out and apologise for actually showing a stadium where they have fans in it.
This is not normal. This is not
Easy
normal.
dig there, easy dig. You're lucky because it could have been Arsenal. It could have been Arsenal. Yeah, I was that close.
Oh god.
I held it.
But that is the end of our Monday night news on Fickle Sport. Follow us, Fickle Sport, on YouTube and on Instagram. All that good stuff.
And we'll see you Thursday for our next news update. On today's news, we are going to be going through Premier. Oh, shit.
See how this is so difficult?
All right.